Star family. Peace and blessings. I'm Michael from oneskyastrology, and we're going to examine the June 2022 lunar cycle. This lunation begins June 28th, 2022, with the sun and moon coming together for a new moon backed by the stars of Gemini, famously crafty in the very best sense of that word, playful and intelligent energies. We're approaching the peak of the wave between eclipses. So 2 lunar cycles ago was eclipse season, which initiated a 6-month cycle with the energy of disruption and initiating new directions, new ways of being. We're now approaching 3 months into that, so there's a background level of intensity that's like the peak or the crest of that wave. And this lunar cycle peaks in a full moon conjoined to Pluto and his focused and intense energy in the classically righteous, expansive, truth-oriented stars of Sagittarius on July 13th. That's right, Gemini and Sag. We're using sidereal reckoning, friends, and constellation, or true sidereal reckoning to be precise. So in a second, I'll show you a stellarium view of why I'm not talking about this lunation as originating in the energies of Cancer, like a lot of people are. But if you'd like more information about the history of Western astrology, how tropical astrology came to be, and why I practice using the living skies, the actual skies, check the website out, oneskyastrology. Easy to find. Like my shameless self-promotion. You can see why sidereal astrologers would want to do it this way. We see the sun and moon here in the constellation of Gemini, with Mercury and Venus following in Taurus. We have the north node of the moon and Uranus holding up the later constellation Aries. We have Mars and Eris together in Pisces, joined by the comet Chiron, Jupiter, and Neptune. And we have Saturn finishing up Capricorn, although I believe he's now moving retrograde, so moving back into Capricorn. And Pluto finishing up Sagittarius. The south node is in Libra, and the rest of the sky is empty of major planets. So that's the scene up there on June 28th. And let's take a look in the 2D chart. Let's take a look at the 2D chart, and we'll start to unpack some of these relationships. The first thing that I want to notice is that we're here looking at the new moon on the 28th of June 2022, and the intention of a new moon is sort of like a natal chart for the whole cycle. So we're going to spend a little extra time looking at this chart relative to the other charts. This is a chart that reflects the nature, the energy of the seed of the cycle, or what's going to grow, what's going to blossom and sprout and eventually fruit. It is a low energy time, in contrast to the high energy peak of the cycle that the full moon represents. And the new moon is a time to set intentions and plant seeds energetically. It's a time to develop goals and, craft out of our motivation and intention for the future. Where the waxing cycle is really a time to work towards the fruition that the full moon represents, and the waning cycle is more a time to reflect, introspect, kind of wind it down, and enjoy, of course, the fruits, share the harvest. And then eventually make way for that next new moon, next cycle with its own energy. And this is the pulse, this is the cycle that the energies of the heavens in the star system we live in, this is what they do. So right now on the 28th, what they're doing is meeting for a new moon, and we're meeting in Gemini. This is just where I'm going to start. Gemini is a really interesting set of stars. This is where we see language emerge, develop, and find utility. And the utility it finds is as an inner map for reality itself, right? So Gemini and language are really important stages of human development. And these follow the Taurus phase of development if we're looking at this sequentially. What the Taurus phase develops, what emerges, develops, and finds its use in Taurus is the self-relationship, and very specifically physically, because Taurus is an earth sign. So this is important to understand because, as I mentioned, we're developing a phase of growth, an emergence that started back in Aries with the last eclipse. And in Aries, what emerges, develops, and finds its use is actually the simple desire to separate, right, from Pisces. We're moving forward out of Pisces, kind of nebulous, absorption state. And so Aries represents that desire to individuate again, to descend into the realm of matter and to be a being, to be a person, right? So obviously there's a lot here that we aren't going to get into because of the time constraint on this video. But as we start to follow the lunar cycles more closely, it's not just drilling down and developing our sense of the details. It's also about developing our sense of the bigger picture, the context, because getting a more accurate idea of the energetic weather means kind of seeing in both directions, right? Like that two-headed eagle. We want to see the bigger picture, and we also want to understand the details, the very fine points of how it's all working together. So let's break this down, because Aries was eclipse season, and that eclipse happened with Uranus here, the north node, obviously, because it was an eclipse, and Sun and Moon, and that catalyzed something. And we're still in that wave. We're still in the flow of what that catalyzed. So Aries reflects this fiery, raw kind of drive to be and to develop something. Because Uranus in Aries indicates that we have an opportunity to develop something novel, something unique and maybe totally new. And then Taurus reflects the earthy drive to survive, right? So once we have the idea, well, I've got to be, then we have to take care of that. We have to sustain that. So Taurus is expressing itself in everyday life as the urge to procreate, to develop security, to develop a value system. And all of this is closely linked to survival. Even a value system. I mentioned last month, the value system is basically what we will or won't do to survive. So Taurus about survival. So Gemini, back to the present moment. Here we are again, setting the context. Gemini in this context reflects the urge to organize. Okay, and the air element of Gemini ensures that this is going to be a really mental, intellectual process. And so emphasizing information, it's going to emphasize learning, it's going to emphasize teaching. Gemini is about facts, data, and info. And on an everyday level, what emerges, develops, and finds use in Gemini is the communicative ability. The communicative ability, writing, speaking, learning, teaching. But what's really happening in Gemini, what's really happening at a deep level, is that we're developing a semantic model for the world. Okay, what that means is we're developing a map, a system of words and names, labels, logical organization, relationships, and ideas that allows us to understand and skillfully manipulate things, allows us to, we're like building on the survival thing. Now we're not just surviving, we're thriving. Now we're not just sustaining, we're prevailing. All right, in Gemini, we get prehensile, and we start to use this thing, which is great. This thing being our conscious mind, our left brain, our intellect. So even though all of this map of words and labels and ideas it's important to understand that it's imputed. It's invented and then overlaid onto reality, and this is what Gemini does. The thing about Gemini, the problem with it is that things in reality don't really have a semantic reality of their own, right? A chair isn't a chair until two people agree that that's what they're going to call it, right? It's like a sort of a little agreement we make amongst each other. But the chair you're sitting on doesn't care. It doesn't call itself a chair. It's not interested in that, ostensibly. You know, no way of knowing, but we can assume that things just are, and then people come along, and Gemini happens, and we say that is a chair, and that over there, that is definitely not a chair, and then we compare chair to not chair, and we develop a map, a whole map of this crazy world. Gemini, in a nutshell. That's what we're doing here. And in another important note to build on that important note, an important note on that important note is that the map is not the territory. The map will never be the territory. So Gemini is always going to be, in a way, like Aries and Taurus, a more immature, a more incomplete stage of development. There's something that's going to continue to pull us forward because, you know, the menu is not the meal. It's interesting that the map is not the territory. It was one of the great observations of Korzybski's General Semantics. That's Alfred Korzybski. And he was a linguist and an innovator and established the foundation of our current understanding of the way language and reality interface. That's this sort of stuff that happens inside and the things that happen outside. He's a hero to many, including some heroes of mine, like Robert Anton Wilson. Rest in power. But Korzybski was born July 3rd, 1879, as the sun was in the degree of fixed star Sirius, on its passage through Gemini, and at the zenith of his chart, at the very top. His Mercury was on the Gemini cusp of Cancer and conjoined the South Node, indicating an intellectual gift or talent which had been developed in prior lives. And so our knowledge of stuff and things increased. Thank you, Korzybski. Very interesting that the father of general semantics was born at the peak power of Gemini season with that Sun-Sirius line. Yeah, so all that's really interesting, or, you know, hopefully, but for now, only in as much as it relates to Gemini, which is where we are, where the sun and moon are. And we're getting off to a really tangential start this month. I want to lay some context and at the same time give some interesting examples of Gemini. But we can understand Gemini in contrast to its opposite. Sagittarius. And this is pretty true of all the signs. We can understand them in contrast to their opposite. The heavens are sort of arranged in this seemingly sacred way where what everything needs is what the person that's sitting across from them has. Kind of nice. Still a lot of work, so let's get to it. Gemini is the left brain. Okay? It's the process of using a linguistic, semantic framework to develop thoughts, opinions, viewpoints, and logic about the world, inner and outer. Sagittarius is the right brain, okay? And this gets relevant because our full moon this month is in Sag. So, Sag is the process of using intuitive knowing and innate resonance with truth itself. That's what Sag has going for it. And it develops philosophies, religious frameworks, spirituality. You can see there's a lot more complexity here. We're taking what was built in Gemini, the information base, and we're really developing some more complex ideas. And at the same time, we're experiencing a deep resonance with Sag and natural law. How things really are, or truth, capital T, truth. So what's true? In Gemini, we have information, and in Sagittarius, we have the process of discerning what's really true here. how are things really? How are things really before? See, here's natural law, the way things really are before we get to them, before we approach and put our ideas on them. And here's Gemini, who just wants to put our ideas on everything. So that's how they're different. That's how they're opposite, and they compare and contrast to each other. What they share is they're both traffickers of information. They're both steeped in just information, data, all kinds of, all forms of it. So Gemini represents our opinions about those truths, those right brain truths that we intuit. Gemini's our opinions about that are going on in the left brain. And this can inform our lives with wisdom, or it can become filters through which we distort and then interpret truth, right? And then it becomes truthy and lies, not truth. This is one of the faults, the shadow points of Gemini, is this sort of tendency towards lies. Especially if we're like spiritually immature, right? Then we have that sort of leaning towards that immature, where we'll be closer to that Gemini stage of development, where we're just playing with information, just sort of getting our feet wet, rather than swimming out deep into the waters of Sag and developing philosophies, religious, spiritual, architectures, constructs for people to, really answer some of the deep and meaningful questions of life. The very best is always going to be a healthy balance, though. When we get right down to it, Gemini and Sag need each other. Again, like all the opposites in the chart need each other. Yeah, to look at Gemini on its own, not contrasting it, it's pretty flighty. It's a sort of trickster. It's crafty, and this is where we see illuminated the quality of dualism, duality that Gemini is famous for. It's also this famous tendency to sort of traffic in like half-truths and lies, this trickster. The two sides of the coin, right? The two natures of everything. We see the twins. It's long been the twins. And back to Babylon. And, the mother cultures of Mesopotamia. These stars have been the twins. The air nature of Gemini ensures a lot of movement and lack of internal structure. And so Gemini is known to have a shadow side involving this dual nature and the tendency to shift opinions, to be conflicted. Gemini can be about information as easily as it can be about misinformation. It can be scattered, and it has an amazing capacity for superficiality. And it can rationalize things, so it can rationalize anything to itself. And so again, it needs the honesty and the truth of Sagittarius across the way. Sag is always oriented to actual truth. It's a fire sign that sort of blazes for truth. And truth is what gives meaning and life to the various informations that Gemini comes into contact with. So on the path to wholeness, right, as people, as individuals, this path we're all on, whether we know it or not. But on this path to wholeness, Sag has what Gemini needs. So if Gemini wants to dig a well, it'll dig a hole. But when it gets down to where the digging is hard, it'll rationalize to itself, like, I should dig somewhere else. Then I'll dig a well. I'll dig a faster well. Yeah, I'll do that, And then at the end of the afternoon, right, it'll be sitting in the shade, exhausted, with 50 shallow holes and dirt everywhere, and no well. Okay, but when we combine that Gemini energy, the energy there, with the power of Sag, right, and the Gemini power is the power that knowledge is, right? What do they say? Knowledge is power. That's true. That's true. So the power of Gemini is a raw power. It's like the immature powers are really raw, like Aries is raw. Taurus is raw in its way, and Gemini is a raw power too. So the power of Sag is the power to commit deeply, to go deeper with it. That's what truth offers us, is the option to commit totally, right? That becomes safe when we're aligned with truth. Okay, and when we can combine this Gemini and Sag power, we can dig a well. And this is interesting because when you can commit, right, Sag, that active energy on Gemini. You can then, at the end of an afternoon, you Gemini Sag will be sitting in the well, sitting in the shade, exhausted, but it won't be thirsty because it will have a well. Gemini Sag might sit in the well literally after an afternoon of digging. It's just literally could just sit in the well. But what's important to understand is that opposites complete each other in astrology. That's what I'm trying to say here. So we also have some pretty close aspects between this moon and the two benefics, Jupiter and Venus. We have a 6 minute, it's a 0 degree 6 minute semi-sextile to Venus. And we have a 5 minute, a 0 degree 5 minute square to Jupiter. These are extraordinarily close aspects. And these are extraordinarily benefic planets. These are going to give a great blessing to everything that happens this month. They're just going to brighten up, which isn't to say the month isn't going to have its obstacles and its challenges and its lessons, but this is very good. This is really nice. And Jupiter is resonant with Sagittarius and is said to rule it. And on top of that, it squares really nicely. Jupiter squares don't tend to be as harsh and brutal as other planets' squares. So, if anything, sometimes with a Jupiter square, they can be a little bit too much of something that's indicated by the body squaring Jupiter. Jupiter brings out like too much in the square aspect. So a positive expression of this could be Pisces Jupiter square Gemini new moon. Well, a positive expression, it could bring the power to expand, right? Jupiter, the mind, that's Gemini sun and moon. Okay, it could bring imagination, that's Pisces, that's the backdrop. It could bring imagination that emphasizes the left brain, right brain balance. It could allow us to go beyond our limits, right? That's a Jupiter square. And we could consider new ideas. That's a Gemini new moon. We could look at things totally differently, right? So when you start to look at the combinations that we could have this imagination quality, the power to expand the mind, to consider new ideas, to push ourselves beyond our threshold, to consider things in new and different ways. While the shadow side of this could express itself as a tendency to go too far, right? That's Jupiter square. There could be confusion, Pisces, about what was true, Jupiter, as we start a new cycle, all right, new moon. So Venus is going to bring a real grounding and a goodness, the goodness of her strength as a blessing giver and the goodness of her empowerment at home in her own stars of Taurus. And she brings that blessing through the semi-sextile aspect, which is a harmonious and supportive aspect, which things generally just work together very well. It's not a dynamic or a highly charged aspect, but it's a very friendly, very supportive aspect. It's very good to see. But Venus in harmonious and supportive position is great because she's the dispositor of Mercury here, whose health will manifest through the sun and moon as its ruler. So it's good. Mercury in Taurus tends to really plod through information more slowly and methodically, which could bring a lot of balance to Gemini's quick, whimsical tendencies. This is really very beneficial, and I see it as offering us all a great benefit in considering any information, especially new information that we're going to be considering this month. The Mercury-Saturn trine is something I noticed, and this is interesting. An Earth trine here could mean that we're really taking our time and considering everything more seriously, more diligently, maybe more studiously, and it's going to increase our ability to concentrate on subjects over time. That's a Saturn-Mercury trine effect. Mercury isn't relating to any of the inner planets, but instead it relates to Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And one of the things that indicates is a sort of decreased connection to our own selves and an increased connection to collective issues. And that's collective issues is going to be Saturn, society, and especially around our vision for the future. That's a Uranus Neptune thing. So we may be thinking collectively. We may be thinking a little less about ourselves, our individual selves, and more so there may be an energy that compels us to be drawn more out into the world. And another interesting thing I see in this new moon chart is Uranus approaching North Node. And it is really interesting. It might not seem interesting. So I know a lot of people that might not be interested in that. But it's because it's not that close. It doesn't seem right now like really that important a conjunction. But by the time the July new moon in Cancer comes around, the next new moon, okay, by the time this lunar cycle is wrapped up, we're looking at the new moon now, and by the time this whole thing comes around, that's going to be exact. That North Node Uranus is going to be pretty close to exact. And as an astrologer, I say the future has gravity. It really does. If there's an alignment, if there's an event, just like the events of the past push us forward, just inexorably, you can't fight it. The events of the future pull us. And so I would give this conjunction a lot of significance, this cycle. I would... a lot more than 4 degrees might ordinarily indicate. I would put this up there on my list of primary factors this cycle, because I'm looking at the idea that everything we experience this month is leading up to an alignment between these powerhouses of change, right? When you get these together, these are rulers of futurism. Okay, we're cleared for takeoff, friends, and long live the future. We're going somewhere, right? We're going somewhere. When Uranus and North Node can join, Mars will be with them, and it could make the past obsolete. These are those quantum leaps that have the potential to really take us to new thresholds through them, right? Beyond them, into new paradigms. So, for better or worse, I think we're going somewhere where the past will be obsolete to some extent. To some extent. And one of the last things that I notice is around Neptune, and I want to get this right because Neptune is stationed retrograde. So I want to be really clear. We're getting the stationed retro in there. It means that Neptune is motionless in the sky, in between its forward or direct motion and its backward or retrograde motion. That's apparent retrograde motion. Neptune is just still in the sky. So this is going to really stamp things, really brand things, really imprint things with the special sauce of Neptune and Pisces. And this, is interesting. I always say Neptune is probably 50-50, one of the only planets I can think of that's probably just equal malefic and benefic. It's really hard to say whether it gives curses or grants blessings, and it just does both in different times and different places. Neptune station retrograde is going to increase the intensity of spiritual phenomena. So that's a stamp we are going home with this month. Increase the intensity of confusion generally, okay? And that'll be decreased by the presence of Jupiter here. So Neptune is not only itself a key player, but it's ruling 2 other key players in a formation of malefic planets that we see this month. And it's not that any of these angles are insanely close or really troubling. Although I would say that is a close square between Pluto and Mars. And those are troubling. But not exceptionally at 2 degrees 9 minutes. This isn't the sort of vivid immediacy that you see with these sort of alignments to the benefics. But what we have is a Mars conjoined to Eris, and that's in semi-sextile to Neptune. It's in square to Pluto. It's in sextile to Saturn. Saturn and Neptune are connected, and Pluto and Neptune are connected. And at the end of the day, what we have is, just like we have a formation here where the Sun and the benefics, the other benefics, because Sun is also a benefic in Western astrology, not in Vedic. But what we have was a connection between the benefics, and then we also have a connection between the malefics. So we have these two clusters or signatures, where there's not a lot of overlap in the relating. We do see Saturn, Jupiter connection. It's minor, and it's probably that minor connection is probably the most significant thing I see there that connects them. So we may have a sort of two things going on at once. Powerful negative energies could be arising at the same time as powerful positive energies. The malefic formation, including Pluto, could be some real confusion. Pluto, Mars, Eris, especially in square, is a signature of violent force, either given or received. But the signature of peace, which is Neptune stationed retrograde, in Pisces with Jupiter present, this is a very profound signature of pacifism, peace. This is so on the one hand, we do have Pluto square Mars, the lion. But on the other hand, it's in the stars of Pisces, ruled by Neptune, stationed with Jupiter present. I'm thinking that the lamb that's represented there, you can use a little biblical and get biblical on you. I'm thinking the lamb represented here is going to win that one. We're going to tip the scales in favor of the energies of peace here. But it's very hard to tell when you have two kind of competing formations, right? All this malefic activity, all this benefic activity. I would say that Eris Mars is ferociously martial. It is absolutely ferocious. General Washington, General and then President George Washington of the United States had this alignment in his natal chart. He was a Mars Eris person. And again, Mars square Pluto is famous for expressing as the discharge of violent force. So let's hope, friends, that the power of the alignment here between the new moon and the blessing-giving planets, the classic benefics, is enough, is as strong as it looks like it might be, because we may need it to kind of save the day this month. There's just a lot going on. There's a balance here, right? There's a balance. I think it's the dark side is strong, and the light side is also strong. And I do think that it looks this month like the benefics have greater weight. And I do find it interesting that we're examining these kinds of energies through our experience during Gemini season, right? Because that's the two sides of every coin. That's the flip, right? That's the dualism, duality of Gemini. And with that, let's move on to the waning quarter moon, waxing quarter moon. We'll start there. 6th of July, friends. And the first thing I want to say is the intention of the waxing quarter moon is work. The intention that we set at the new moon, whether we know it or not, and to believe me, There's a lot to that sentiment. But the intention that we set, whether we know it or not, we're now working towards, or we could be working towards, because that's the way the wind is blowing. So if we're working, we really have the wind at our back. We can really get a lot done. So this is the time to work, right? This is the time to then develop the intention into a real thing on the scale of that 1 month pulse, that 1 month cycle. So within that month, the waxing quarter moon is a time when we start to see what's emerging too. It's a time when we start to see the cycle take form, take shape. We have the blessing of Venus on a star that is very good to her, and that's fixed star Rigel. And she's trine the moon. The moon in Gemini is very, very, very favored when Venus trines. We also have a relation to Jupiter, the opposition. Sometimes with the Jupiter in Pisces, opposite a moon in Virgo, can be a little too self-critical. It can lose track of what's real, and it can become a little bit just too negativity biased. But Venus trine moon tends to make everything just feel sweet, feel nice, make everything more agreeable. And this moon is reflecting via the square the light of a sun on fixed star Sirius. So we have a couple fixed stars activated this waxing quarter. And Sirius is a big one. Always power when Sirius shows up. So Sun's still in square relationship to Jupiter. It's also in aspect now to Uranus. We've brought in a sextile to Uranus. And there could very easily around this time be too much. It just too much of something. It could be related to idealism. It could be related to Pisces, but it could be a time of gentle disillusionment where we kind of go too far and get brought back. Very easy to see that happening under this sort of circumstance. And also emphasized is this little guy. Some people call Chiron a comet, and some people call Chiron an asteroid. But the truth is, Chiron is technically a centaur, and that's a technical term. That's an astronomical term. The centaurs orbit out in the outer planets, and they share qualities of asteroids and comets. So just like the half man, half horse that the centaur is, that's how they got their name. Another mythological reference, but another accurate one. So Chiron is about trauma. Chiron's about the early wound and our healing ourselves, and through that healing journey, our learning to heal others. When Chiron is opposite to the moon, this can just increase the focus on our hardship, can increase the focus on our struggle. With the moon in negative, Virgo, self-critical, square to Sun, opposite to Jupiter, if we're going to go too far with anything, this month, like a Jupiter opposition would indicate, I would guess it's going to be being a little self-critical, where we could be easy and forgiving on ourselves, right, around where we've been wounded, where we've been traumatized. Could be easy at this time, especially around 6th of July, just to feel an energy of great, self-critique. Could be unhelpful. Could be better to remember that Venus moon trine and just lean in to that self-love that Taurus is offering us. So Sun Sirius is often brilliant, blazing. It's too much, actually. It's too hot. Sirius is connected to almost every notable expression of greatness in the history of human endeavor here on Earth, but it scorches. It's a scorcher, and those people who carry its light, they can do great things, but they almost always get burned. It's a little blessing curse, right? You know, everything comes with a price. In the human, in the collective human journey, the Sun Sirius time can be a time of high intensity when we're empowered to ride the intensity. But it can be like a monster wave, you know, the kind that when you get thrown, you know, you can get pounded against the bottom, right? And it can be hard. It can be hard to get back up. When you're surfing, you get thrown off the wave. The wave can push you down to the bottom, and it can kind of pound you, and you try and get up, but the next wave will come, and it's very scary. And you know, people die. It's probably like a riptide. It's just one of those you know, dangers, occupational dangers you just deal with, but it happens. So I want to be really careful when Sun's on Sirius. We have to be careful. We have to be careful about any kind of power we tap into, any kind of flows we really start to ride at that time. We want to be aware. Yeah, very powerful star, very beautiful, very good star, but got a price. Now let's move forward to the full moon. I want to take a look at this. This looks powerful. This is a lot. This just looks intense, friends. So let's break it down a step at a time. Looking at the full moon on the 13th of July, 2022. And the intention of the full moon, much like I've discussed several times in the course of this video and through many of my videos, is the fruit, this is the harvest, this is the peak, and this is where we get to have that high energy that can allow us to like manifest what we've been intending and working towards. So the moon is conjoined to Pluto in Sagittarius. So Sag, what is Sag, right? Sag is truth. That simple. Always that simple with Sag. Truth. It's meaning. It's faith. It's beliefs. It's philosophy. It's natural law. It's how it is. There's no overlay. Like I said, that's the opposite of Gemini. No overlay. No intellectual. No, just how is it? Before I can even describe it, how is it? Right? Truth. Sag is expansion, pushing the envelope. It's growing past our boundaries. It's pushing our limits from travel to philosophical contemplation to foreigners. Sag resonates with anything that expands our mind, our thinking, our consideration. And the shadow of Sag here is not long. It's not a long shadow, but Sag gets very restless. Sag is just, it's just hard. It's hard to settle. Sages are hard to settle. As Sag is a zealot, Sag will want to convince and convert you. Sages always think they're right. And they're alienated. The Sages these people, Sages, and the energy, the archetype of Sag is alienated because it's a shaman. And it's different. It's you know, it's the deep thinkers. So these people get a little harsh kicks from society who doesn't want to go the places that it thrives. Can be overly charming, sort of what my teachers call a silver-tongued devil. This is an archetype of Sag, and it can be dogmatic. Sag can just, like, once it gets convinced that it's right, it can just stay in a rut. It's just not always open to new ideas. That's an advantage Gemini has over Sag. Gemini is very open to new ideas. And at this time for the full moon, the sun's moved off Sirius, but we're still on a big star in Gemini. We're on Castor. We're on Alpha Gemini Castor. And yeah, this is the gentle brother, the herder of beasts, right? Not the warrior, not the other brother. That's Pollux. And these are the twins, right? All the many cultures that saw these constellations as the twins, the whole way back to Babylon. Castor was always the mortal brother. He was always the peaceful one, the good one, and it's interesting. When we look at the sun-moon axis, we have trines. We have trines to both the visionary planets, and we have a trine from Sun to Neptune, and we have a trine from Moon to Uranus. That's an interesting support. I like to see that. They're not sextile they're not relating to each other, Neptune and Uranus. But when I see this, I see visionary support. I see support from the deep mind, and I see support from the collective subconscious and unconscious. I see a lot of good things in these trines. I more so want to focus on this squared Eris, though. This is very interesting. Eris is T-squaring this arrangement. This could distort matters. What we want to do here is penetrate. That's Pluto. Pluto wants to penetrate. What does he want to penetrate? The truth. That's Sag. Here's the moon. There's consciousness. And where consciousness is osmosing, is just absorbed in the energies of Pluto's, depth, penetration, incisiveness. We're going to get to the truth. We're going to discover the truth. Okay. And here's Sun Mercury over here in Gemini. Well, means we're looking at a lot of information. Okay, so we're looking at a lot of information. We got to discover the truth. Well, what is going to get in the way? What's the obstacle to that? And if we look at Eris in Pisces and we ask ourselves, well, how would that affect in a T-square formation? How would that affect? Well, Eris is always going to be what we're hiding from ourselves. Eris is always going to be what we're suppressing, what we're pushing down, what we don't want to recognize, what we're afraid to recognize. Eris is the unworshipped. And because it's in the position it's in this month, we're going to take a little bit closer look at it for the waning quarter moon, because the waning quarter, this moon is going to come around and sit right on Eris. So we're going to look at Eris in the next chapter of this video. Also, I noticed that Venus is trying to Saturn, and these two are supporting Eris with sextile. Venus is at home. Saturn is at home. Both of these planets are empowered to their fullest, and they get along with each other really well. Venus, I like to say Venus is Saturn's only friend, and these two are supporting Eris. So this will give a lot of stability. And with Saturn in Cap and the power of Taurus, it's going to give Pisces what it needs. Structure, boundaries, right? The thing about Eris in Pisces, gosh, it can just get so confused about its own blind spots, right? Like what we don't even know, we don't know. And that's, it's a huge problem. Venus in Taurus and Saturn in Capricorn can keep us from getting lost in like the nebulous depths of that reality. It can keep us grounded and oriented to the practical and focused on what's accomplishable. It could be huge. And again, it's a situation this month where I see a sort of setup between the blessing planets and the harsh planets, the obstacle planets. And there's a sort of a tug of war, a clash, if you will, where you wonder who's going to win. And I think the weight here strongly goes to the benefics. I think the more challenging thing that I see is actually a full moon conjoined Pluto, because that's just going to be so intense. We're all going to have to watch it. This full moon, don't go out, don't be partying. Not with a full moon in late Sag conjoined Pluto, T-squared by Eris. Don't take that chance. That's a great couple nights to just make some plans, stay in, keep a low profile, friend. Don't get in trouble. So we have this intense, we're going deep. We've got the moon with Pluto pulling truth, that's Sag, from information, Gemini, supported by the visionary, supported by the futuristic. And the main obstacle here in an otherwise straightforward looking process is, the shadow goddess, Eris, old grandmother, the unworshipped. And her main function, to bring hidden and unobserved truths to light. So there is a sort of internal logic to this all. There is a harmony here. To bring illumination to that which was not previously recognized is an Eris function. And it's what's happening with this Pluto-Sag axis. Do we get that? To bring to the surface that which was not previously seen is we're sharing an intention here with the discovery of truth from the sea of information. Okay? We're discovering what is hidden, and especially we might have a chance here to discover what we've been hiding from ourselves. Always priceless. Priceless to discover that. To be disillusioned in that way, which is really what Pisces wants. That's a Pisces process, disillusion. All right, moving on. Let's check it out. The waning quarter moon. Last quarter moon, friends. Here we are on July 20th, 2022. Moon has moved around and is conjoined to Eris, and Eris has stationed retrograde. Just like Neptune, we talked about these stations still in the sky. A major brand, a very deep stamp of that thing, and just increasing the importance, the significance, the power of it. So now, and I want to say before I jump into this, the intention of the waning quarter phase is going to be to wind things down, to enjoy the harvest, enjoy the harvest of the fruits. And then the waning quarter moon symbolizes a time when we start to kind of fold it up and roll it up and take it in and get ready for the next cycle. So we're kind of clearing house here. We're kind of seeing what worked, what didn't. There's a lot of introspection and a lot of retrospection in the last quarter moon. That's the natural energy that's been discovered and agreed upon over time. Time out of mind. So now, my friends, the moon has moved around to join Eris as she stations. And this is deep grandmother energy. This might be the kind of energy we really fear. This is because it could take us to consider stranger things, maybe darker things. I think the discomfort of this alignment, the discomfort that this alignment could be capable of producing, is going to be less than the insight that it's capable of supporting. And I say that because as Eris stations, totally motionless in the sky, at the peak of her power, and the moon squares Cancer, Sun, and Mercury, and a Sag, Pluto, well, it's squaring them from dreamy Pisces, and we could gain a lot of insight. It's depth insight, Moon Eris, into what we've been doing to block ourselves from understanding our personal truth, right? That's Sun Pluto. That's our personal truth. And because Moon is in a deep position in late Pisces, from this vantage point, we can look back and take the past in. We can look forward because as we approach Aries, we can feel the future. We can feel something wanting to emerge. We can feel that we are about to start something new, you know? So with the North Node Mars and Uranus here in Aries, right? We're feeling this as the moon is coming up. There's a pull again. The future has gravity. And with Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces ruling, both of them are given rulership over Pisces. I think that Eris is going to make more available to us than just confusion. Just chaos. I think Jupiter will move everything it touches incrementally toward the beneficial. I've seen this time and time again. You get a classic negative alignment, but then there's Jupiter contact, and it just alleviates the classic negativity. But I don't want to say everything will just, hunky-dory be okay. What I want to say is that Jupiter resonates very well with Pisces. It's very happy here. Neptune's here at home, so the ruler of Pisces isn't like elsewhere dealing with other energies. Everything's really concentrated. We can bring out the higher angles here with Jupiter. The higher angles of Pisces, which are spiritual, liberation, peace, the journey towards connection to oneness, the source, and all of life within that. matrix of consciousness, right? So yeah, with Aries full, we're really moving towards some new beginnings, and we've got some momentum, some steam behind it all here. The waning quarter could be a time to take in new truths and sort of process the whole scenario. Take in whole new ways, really, of looking at reality if you can. Maybe embrace other people's point of view. Maybe embrace a point of view, just try it on. Maybe you've never thought about things from the point of view of someone who you don't really understand. You know, say you're a classic, say you play for the green team, and you never understand how the red team, you say, what are they doing over there on the red team? Just put yourself there. Okay, just get in your mind and your imagination and put a red team jersey on, right? And think to yourself, wow, I was raised to love red team. What would that be like? Wow. Feel real awkward, feel real sticky at first, feel real weird, right? Okay, well, that's the kind of energy we're talking about. That's the kind of energy we're talking about here. Trying on a new perspective, pushing ourselves beyond our boundaries. Remember that new moon? Getting ourselves into maybe different scenarios, you know, and then we're discovering, are we willing to change? There doesn't have to be a yes or a no. There's no right, wrong answer, but we're discovering, we're attempting change. So this could be a little scary. You know, we like things to be the same, idiotic as that is, because change is the only constant. But are we willing to evolve with the discovery of new information? That's what this cycle is generally asking us. I also want to say Moon, Eris, and Pisces here with Neptune. There could be a time of darker dreams. If around late July we're having dark dreams, I wouldn't think much of it. It'll pass. Could be a time of inner confusion if we aren't willing or able to change. Maybe around new information, maybe around, new truths come to light. Uranus, North Node, Mars here in Aries, all indicates we're about to take flight. We're about to take off in a new and maybe even an unusual direction. So that's got a lot to do with this phase as we approach the next new moon, the July 28th Cancer alignment. What we'll be winding down to is that next new moon. And I like to take a sneak peek at the next new moon just so we can sort of get some kind of sense. And this is what we're winding down to, right? As the waxing moon approaches, this is what we're making way for. This will be what we're getting ready for. This, my friends, will be the gravity of the future. This month anyway. And then next month it'll be the gravity of the present. We have Sun and Moon in constellation Cancer for this next new moon. We're 28th July 2022. Looking ahead, we're in the DeLorean. We're back in the future. So I want to be really clear about that. We have a trine to Jupiter, and Jupiter is stationed. So powerful Jupiter energies in Pisces. We've got widely opposed to Pluto. We do have the energy of contact with Pluto here. And I see Venus on Sirius. So now we have more Sirius contact. And Mercury making a very, very, very close square to Uranus. That square, my friends, is 0 degrees and 15 arc minutes. Very intense, very vibrant time is promised when Mercury and Uranus get together. And this is the second cycle where the benefics stay emphasized. I want to point that out. It's also the peak or crest of a wave of evolution between the two eclipses. Okay, so as we approach the South Node eclipse, we're halfway through. We're at a point halfway through the cycle, and so we're at the crest. We're at the peak of that wave next month. So Those eclipses in Aries were with Uranus. Now Uranus is with North Node, so this is resonant, right? Mars is in Aries, emphasizing the kind of breakout quality. We're going to start something new. Something's going to give. Something's going to blow. Mars, Uranus, and Aries will get it started. It will. Neither of them cares about, resistance or other ideas. They will find a way. Especially with North Node there, just that insatiable appetite for, in this case, the future. So next month, feeling the intensity of all that. And we can use that intensity to break through barriers, inner and outer. We can achieve more complex and long-term plans in less time, with less effort when we're living this way. So we'll look at that next month, my friends. We'll look at that next month in depth. And I'll see you in July. But we've come to the end of late June cycle, the Gemini cycle, summer where I live, and winter for everyone south of the equator. Wherever you live, thank you for watching. I hope these videos help you. I've always, since I started paying attention to transits, found that they just help deepen my understanding, deepen my relationship to the planet, to the universe, to myself and others. And whether you use these practically just as a weather report, super cool. Magically, to move with nature, deepen your integration with nature, powerful goodness. Really in any way on your earthly journey. Just thank you for paying attention to these cycles. And if you're out there watching and doing something useful with this information, I made this for you, and I appreciate you. So if you want to learn more about various forms of sidereal astrology, mostly Western constellational, aka true sidereal astrology, and you're a Facebook user, please check out the Sidereal Revolution Facebook group. Fabulous place where all the students of all levels hang out and explore this weird connection between inner space and outer space that we call astrology. That's Sidereal Revolution. Check it out on Facebook. That's just where people who study and practice this kind of astrology hang. Check out my website. Like, subscribe to this video. It really helps. Oh yeah, my website. I just sort of revamped it, so it's all got a fresh new layer of pizzazz all over it. I did a little summer solstice offering, so just sort of spruced it up, kind of harness that high energy, the high energy of the season here. Like I said, we're getting into a lot of sunlight, a lot of warm weather, summer up here in the northern hemisphere. All right, fam. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.